Hello there, fellow captains. This is Connor, and I have a question for you. A question that really doesn't have an easy answer or is definitive because we as the actual player base of Dreadnought wouldn't know until we actually find out in some sort of press release or just general update. But the question is, what would you guys do to improve Dreadnought, or what do you think the actual future of Dreadnought will be, if there is one? So it goes without saying that Dreadnought is one of my favourite games, at least at the moment, and has been for quite a while. I have had breaks with Dreadnought, but keep coming back. And between Dreadnought and Fractured Space, they're, of course, the two most popular games I cover on the channel. But I really want to get into some ideas that I believe could improve Dreadnought, as well as attract a larger audience. That's the main problem we're having with Dreadnought right now. There's a very small player base, and I believe daily the amount of players for the past 6 months at least has been around 120 to 130, dwindling in between, but for the past 2 months it's a good thing that the player base has increased by about 30 to 40%. Roughly for the past 2 months at least, between October and November, it shot up to about 190 players a day, which is pretty damn cool to improve that much over a short space of time just out of nowhere. So I'm going to get into what my ideas would be, what I would really like to see Dreadnought do, just to overall improve the experience and possibly again attract a wider audience. So my first idea is one that relates to the fundamental gameplay and progression of Dreadnought. So I have spoken to people, and I have also had chats with people during live streams as well as just in the comment sections of my videos about how people do not like the progression system of Dreadnought, at least not when they get to tier 4 and subsequently tier 5, which is even worse than tier 4. Just to lay it out and explain a bit more about what I'm talking about, people enjoy Dreadnought up until they get to tier 4. At tier 4, there is a massive incline in difficulty in the grind. So you get to tier 4, you're thinking, oh, this is all great. I'm finally getting to tier 4 and 5 where the big boys play, where I can get some of the cooler looking ships or the cooler looking aesthetic, options for ships. But then the grind begins. You're limited to tier 3 weapons on a tier 4 ship, which really isn't that great. I mean, that's just handicapping you straight from the get-go, and if you want to improve or even get to a decent loadout, you have to spend a lot of time either grinding, spending money to convert free XP over to the actual XP you can use, or both, which isn't fun. I mean, I myself have played the game quite a bit, not as much as a lot of you out there, but again, I play the game quite a bit, and I've spent quite a bit of money on the game, and this is coming from someone who really enjoys the game still. I don't like having to spend money on the elite status to get anywhere with any sort of decent speed. And even with the elite status, for tier 5 ships, it still isn't, you're not really going anywhere fast. It's not fun being stuck with a stock ship, being killed every other battle with a crappy default loadout. It just is not fun. Not to mention tier 3 as well. When you're a tier 4 ship, when you jump into a tier 5 ship, you're stuck with tier 4 weapons and modules. It sucks. It really, really does suck. So the first thing I would do is completely change the progression system. I believe the developers would make a lot of money just off the cosmetic options as well as the release of hero ships. There's no need for the elite status at all. No need for it at all. That's just Greybox, I believe, looking Jaeger to put in a system that's very similar to Wargaming's World of Tanks and World of Warships, which was a very, very popular model. It did them very well. It pretty much got them from making Order of War, a little RTS game set during World War II that nobody knew about, to being one of the best earning companies out there today, at least where gaming's related. So just knock the progression system on its head, reduce the amount of XP you need, and that's it. Reduce the XP need as well as the credit need for ships. People will go through the game enjoying it more because they have access, well, more easy access to more ships and ship types, which means they'll mix it up a bit more, play different ships, and of course that makes the experience less monotonous and less grindy, which in my eyes is awesome. That's one of the main reasons I still love Fractured Space to this day. There's a lot of people out there that are probably thinking, oh, Connor, not Fractured Space again, it's gone, it's dead. But Fractured Space was amazing to me in that it wasn't that difficult to unlock a new ship. You would jump into 3 or 4 games in the Executioner, for example, maybe get bored with the Executioner there, and then switch over to something like the Ghost, and then enjoy the Ghost. And every ship in that game was unique in how it played. You might have a few different cloaked ships, That being, ships that could cloak, go invisible, and were primarily used for ambush. So they did a lot of damage very quickly, but then you had to recloak and get out of there. But no two ship that cloaked played exactly the same. They both had very different ways of how they could actually do damage, or very different ways of how they could hinder the enemy. But that's the first thing I would do to maybe make the game more accessible, as well as just make it more enjoyable, because you'll be able to unlock more ships more quickly and efficiently, and that of course allows you to play more ships, which means you'll play for longer because you don't get bored as quickly. Now, to move on to the second thing I would do to improve Dreadnought, this gets a bit more technical. Well, in my mind, technical, because I'm not a game designer. I don't develop games, obviously. I make videos on YouTube, so it's very easy for me to criticize and say what I would like in the game, but of course it's not that simple, especially seeing how Dreadnought's developer team has been knocked down quite a bit, which is scummy, honestly. It was Greybox's fault for the way the game went downhill, I believe. I don't believe any game developer ever goes out of their way to make a bad game, but of course, games need to make money. Dreadnought was going to be a free-to-play game, and you need to make your money somehow. I believe it should have all just been cosmetic, hero ships, that type of thing, but of course, that's not the way it turned out. But anyway, to get aside from that, my second idea would be to make the ships on the ship combat a little bit more detailed, in that each ship would have modules like they do now. Only those modules would be physically represented on the ship as weak points. So again, to explain, very similar to how World of Tanks and World of Warships work. If Dreadnought wants to be the space capital ship version of those two games, in that the progression as well as monetization is almost identical to Wargaming's products. But yeah, let's say you're in a Monarch, for example. You're using your armor amplifier to push against the enemy team, but there's a really good artillery cruiser pilot on the enemy team that is lining up a shot against the module that is of course physically visible on the ship as a little generator. He takes his shot, takes out the armor amplifier generator, and then of course stops the advance of the entire team, because no longer can the Monarch move unopposed. Now, this could work in many different ways, not just like modules. For example, also really important ship systems like the engines could be taken out, which puts a complete halt on the ship's movement for a while until they get back up and running, or even on the generator of the ship itself, which once taken down, you cannot activate the shield. This is just something I would really like to see in place. It would mean that you'd have to play a lot more tactically. You'd have to be aware of your surroundings. You'd have to be aware of what angle you were currently moving towards the enemy at, because some modules would be more accessible than others depending on the angle of the ship, and you'd have to be a lot more careful and precise with each shot. Now of course there are ships like the Dreadnought, for example, that just lay down a massive hail of fire. Well, then they could probably do a little bit of damage to all the modules, but not as much as, let's say, a destroyer or even a more accurate ship like the artillery cruiser. So there are many different ways you could go with it, but that's just my second thought, or my idea on how you could improve Dreadnought, just to make it more strategic. That would always be good. This is already in place in Fractured Space, only in a very, 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 very simple way, in that the front, sides, and back of your ship each have a little piece of armor. And if that armor is destroyed or shot out enough, it falls apart, which means doing damage to that part of the ship where the damage has fallen off will increase the damage done to that part of the ship. But that's the second idea. That's the one I would like to see implemented the most. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. I mean, I don't think it would be too difficult. As much as there is a lot of variety in Dreadnought visually, there are only really 5 ships per faction. It's only that depending on the rank of the tier, they change a little bit visually, but the basic skeleton or rigging of each ship is fundamentally the same. So that doesn't really seem to me, at least, that will be difficult to do. And the third and final idea I have, by the way, let me hear what you guys think down below. I would like to discuss some other ideas. That would be pretty cool. But yes, my final and third idea is missions. Now these missions won't be solely single player or solely online, although of course you have to be online to play the game. But what I mean by that is you wouldn't need to have 10 players each side to actually have fun, because bots mess things up. The way it would work in my eyes is that you would have 5 human players chosen through a matchmaking system, and you will be pitted in a mission that has been of course set up by the developers, and they will be story driven, which adds more lore and story to the actual universe of Dreadnought, which is something I believe a lot of us are after. We just want to know more about the universe. So the missions could be anything really. For example, there's a mission in World of Warships where it's basically the exact same thing, only Dreadnoughts, capital ships in space. But in World of Warships, you would have a few AI friendly ships that you'd need to escort to a certain position because they're carrying supplies or something, I don't know. But you'd be continually harassed by enemy ships, as well as coastal defences, aircraft, that type of thing. And it's fun, it really is. The player base in World of Warships is down right now. It's not as bad, nowhere near as bad as Dreadnought, but because there's such a low current population for Dreadnought, it is good that it's going up, but again, still pretty low. This would help alleviate that. There would be people that could jump into that game, have fun, because it only requires 5 players, and they'd be shooting up enemies, gaining XP. Maybe you could throw in a few other things, like maybe you could get camos or different armor colors for your ships. But I have a mission lined up in my head, just something I came up quickly just to use as an example in this video. So there's a pirate base. From this pirate base, pirate fleets are launching from the pirate base. I'm going to be saying pirates a lot here, by the way. Are launching raids on convoys, on civilian stations, civilian planets and homesteads, settlements, that type of thing. And you're hired to go out and take care of them. That also plays into the whole mercenary aspect of Dreadnought. You're hired to go out and take care of them. When you do, you're faced with an asteroid belt surrounding the asteroid base for the pirates. So to actually break through, you need to follow a certain path that will allow the bigger ships through. Maybe a corvette in your team can swing around, use the environment to their advantage, and take out ships and defences that the larger ships wouldn't be able to. That would be a pretty cool aspect, just to get the utilisation for every ship class in the game in there. But basically, it's just to allow your bigger ships to get through and to add a certain story element and a dynamic to the gameplay. While you're progressing through the asteroid field, there are mines that need to be taken care of. There are static defences like turrets and gunnery positions, and you're harassed by the odd fighter, bomber, interceptor, smaller corvette, but then you break through the asteroid belt and get to the pirate base itself. Now you're confronted with a massive station that is of course armed and armoured to the teeth, as well as a fleet protecting it. Or a small battle group at least. This is just one idea, but it plays into the whole mercenary aspect of Dreadnought, as well as just giving us a bit more information and a narrative to follow, something more fun, something more interesting than just getting stomped by a clan online right now, because the player base is that small that most of the people who are currently playing are masters of the game. That's very, very daunting for starting players. It really is. Even for me, who took a break there coming back into tier 5, I'm still getting my ass kicked to this day, but I'm improving, I hope. I think at least I am. But anyway, those are just my ideas, guys. They're just nothing special. They've probably been talked about many times before on the forums or even on the official Reddit, but I just had to put them out there because I do genuinely worry about the game's future, and some of these ideas could probably be implemented quite easily. I think maybe the story-driven missions are probably the most difficult aspect of it, as well as probably getting the go-ahead from Greybox to remove certain monetization aspects. But anyway, let me know what you guys think below. And just to mention and thank my current patrons, their names are on screen right now, so thank you very much, you 6. I very much appreciate it, and if you'd like to become a patron and to continue to support the channel, you can go to www.patreon.com/ConnorChaos, and that is Connor with one N. If you would also like to join the Discord, which is free, you can find that link in the description as well as the Patreon link. So, thank you very much. Both support me in different ways, but either way, I'd be quite grateful. So yeah, have fun in whatever you're playing. I hope you enjoyed the video, and of course, like always, we'll see you next time. Bye bye.